You've entered Interstellar Chronicles. Close your eyes and drift into another world, a place where stars whisper forgotten names, where time folds and destinies collide across galaxies. Your journey begins now. A human rogue's defiant spirit claimed a Korrath warlord's heart, love born in the crucible of chaos. HFY Sci-Fi story. The galaxy sprawled like a tapestry of molten starfire, its nebulae swirling with secrets older than the cosmos itself. Each constellation a silent witness to empires risen and fallen, their stories etched in light, shadow, and the cold void between. The Concord of Spheres held uneasy dominion, a fragile alliance of alien civilizations, each drunk on their own supremacy. Their pride a gravity well that threatened to collapse the delicate peace forged in blood and truce. The Valor, crystalline entities of pure intellect, wove telepathic symphonies that could unravel mortal minds, their prismatic forms shimmering within floating orbs that hummed with psionic power, their songs a chorus of logic, scorn, and subtle menace. The silvery, luminous arbiters of radiant light judged the stars with the cold precision of a collapsing nova, their formless bodies pulsing with dispassionate wisdom that left no room for mercy, doubt, or the chaos of emotion. The Korrath, scaled titans forged in the molten crucibles of their volcanic homeworld, Korrath, enforced order with plasma-forged claws. Their roars a challenge to the void itself. Their strength a hymn to survival in a world where fire and stone were both master and foe. Humans? They were the galaxy's jest. Scrawny, fleeting, and reckless, dubbed ephemeral sparks by the Valor's crystalline songs and yapping vermin by the Korrath's growling sagas. Weak in body, chaotic in spirit, their lives flickered out like candles in a cosmic storm, dismissed as insignificant by a galaxy that measured worth in strength, eternity, and dominion. Yet, one human, a scoundrel with a heart of unyielding defiance, would carve his name into the stars, steal a warlord's soul, and prove humanity's fire could outshine even the mightiest suns, rewriting the galaxy's narrative with audacity, cunning, and a love that burned through scorn and shadow. The story ignites on Vrykul, a rogue asteroid adrift in the Nebula Veil, a lawless hub where the galaxy's outcasts bartered, betrayed, and bled. Its obsidian tunnels, carved by ancient machines lost to myth, glowed with bioluminescent vines that pulsed like living veins, casting eerie, shifting light on rusted stalls, neon-lit dens, and air thick with the scent of ozone, spilled synthale, and desperation. Smugglers peddled stolen Valor tech, their hollow displays flickering with forbidden wares, data cores that whispered secrets of forgotten wars, weapons that could crack hulls like eggs, relics that promised power or doom to those bold enough to claim them. Mercenaries sharpened blades in shadowed alcoves, their eyes glinting with hunger for credits or blood, their scars telling tales of battles won or barely survived, each mark a story of defiance or regret. Deals were sealed with a nod, a bribe or a knife, and trust was a currency no one could afford, traded only by fools or the dead. At the heart of this chaos was Cassian Holt, a human rogue whose reputation cut sharper than a plasma blade. 32, lean as a whipcord, with piercing green eyes that gleamed like jade under his tousled dark hair. Cassian was a void rat, a scavenger thriving on the Concord's cast-offs, a ghost who turned scraps into schemes that toppled the mighty. His patched leather coat, a patchwork of scavenged hides stitched with secrets, bristled with contraband. A hacked Valor hollow key that shimmered with forbidden code. A pulse grenade raked from silvery scrap. A cloaking fob he'd lifted from a junk trader in a back-alley brawl that left the fool unconscious and Cassian richer by a small fortune. To Vrykul's denizens, he was a phantom, slipping through shadows with a crooked grin that promised trouble or profit, if you played his game right and didn't blink when he cheated. His charm a weapon as deadly as any blade. Vrykul's latest spectacle was a high-stakes auction for a Valor prism shard, a crystalline lattice rumored to hold blueprints for an ancient weapon known as the Graviton Lance, a device capable of rewriting gravity itself, shattering moons, toppling empires, or bending space with a single pulse, its power a whisper of apocalypse. The shard's allure had drawn the galaxy's predators like moths to a flame, each hungry for power or profit, their ambitions a tinderbox waiting for a spark to ignite a war. Cashin was there to steal it, his fingers itching for a heist that would make him legend. His mind already mapping escape routes to Vykal's maze of tunnels, each twist and turn a piece of his plan, each shadow a hiding place for his schemes. The auction chamber was a vast cavern carved into the asteroid's core, its walls pulsing with floating orbs that hummed with Valar psionic energy, their kaleidoscopic light casting fractured patterns across the obsidian floor, like a shattered rainbow bleeding into the dark. The air crackled with tension, thick with the weight of unspoken threats and veiled ambitions. The hum of alien voices, a storm of greed, distrust, and barely restrained violence. Valar brokers, their crystalline forms glinting within prismatic shells, whispered telepathic suspicions that prickled the skin like static, their songs a chorus of logic and scorn that made Cashin's head ache, their minds probing for weakness. Silthari ambassadors, their luminous, formless bodies flickering like candle flames in a storm, pulsed with silent disapproval, their presence a reminder of the Concord's fragile truce, their light dimming when lies were spoken, their judgment a silent weight that pressed on the soul. Korrath enforcers, scales gleaming like molten iron, stood like living fortresses, their claws raking sparks against the stone as they scanned for threats, their tails twitching with barely restrained violence, their amber eyes burning with disdain for the weaker species around them, their roars a low rumble that shook the air. Then she arrived. Warlord Clyra of the Ashen Blade stormed into the chamber, her presence a thunderclap that silenced the hum of alien voices and stilled the air itself. A force of nature clad in scales and fire, a living storm that demanded all. 8 feet of towering might. Her obsidian scales shimmered with veins of molten gold, catching the orb's light in a mesmerizing dance of fire and shadow. Each scale a testament to battles won and enemies broken, a canvas of her legacy. Her amber eyes blazed like twin suns, sharp enough to flay souls with a glance, their intensity a weapon as deadly as her strength, a gaze that could bend wills or shatter them like glass. Her armor, forged from Korrathar's star metal, hugged her powerful frame, muscled yet graceful, etched with runes that told of 100 victories, each a saga of blood and fire carved into the galaxy's memory, a story of unyielding will and unrelenting power. A plasma whip coiled at her hip, its handle carved with the sigils of her clan, a weapon that had felled armies, shattered hulls, and carved her name into Korrath legend, its hum a promise of destruction that echoed in the hearts of her foes. Clyra was a living myth, a warlord who'd shattered a Silthari warship with a single lash at 20, her name sung in Korrathar's lava-lit halls where warriors knelt before her, their roars a hymn to her glory, their loyalty a fire that burned as fiercely as her own. To her, honor was iron, emotion a flaw to be burned away in the crucible of combat, a weakness unfit for a leader of the Ashen Blade, a clan whose legacy was forged in fire and never bent, their strength a shield against a galaxy that sought to break them. There will a blade that cut through doubt and fear. Her gaze swept the room, a predator survey, cutting through the crowd like a blade through flesh, and snagged on Cashin, slouched in a corner, twirling a stolen Valar crystal between his fingers like a gambler's coin, his grin a spark of defiance in the dark, a challenge that refused to bow. "Human," she growled, her voice a low quake that rattled his bones and sent a shiver through the crowd, a sound that carried the weight of volcanoes and storms, a challenge that demanded submission or destruction. "You reek of deceit. What does a void rat want in my presence?" Cashin met her stare, his grin unwavering, sharp as a blade, his green eyes glinting with mischief and nerve, a spark that refused to be snuffed, a fire that burned brighter under her gaze. "Just admiring the scenery, Warlord," he said, his voice smooth but laced with a challenge, his posture relaxed but ready, a gambler playing a high-stakes hand with the galaxy as his table. "That whip's a work of art. Bet it's hell at parties. Cracks skulls and starts fires." Yeah, the chamber froze, the air thick with shock. Valar orbs dimmed, their telepathic songs faltering, their light stuttering like a dying star, their brokers' minds reeling at the human's audacity. Silthari pulsed erratically, their light strobing in disapproval, their formless bodies flickering as if offended by his words, their judgment a silent condemnation that weighed on the soul. A Korrath guard bared fangs, claws twitching for blood, his tail lashing like a warning, his growl a rumble that promised pain, his scales bristling with rage that begged for release. Clyra's own tail cracked against the floor, a sound like a breaking bone, a warning that echoed through the cavern, shaking the orbs and making the air hum with tension. Her eyes flickered. Amusement or fury? Cassian couldn't tell, though the spark in her gaze made his pulse quicken, a thrill he couldn't name but felt in his bones. Bold words for prey, she said, stepping closer, her shadow swallowing him like a void, her presence a wall of fire that could incinerate lesser souls, her claws twitching as if itching to strike, her tail coiling like a spring ready to snap. Scurry back to your filth, or I'll crush you myself. He leaned forward, voice low and teasing, his grin daring her to strike, his eyes locked on hers without a hint of fear, green meeting amber in a silent duel that crackled with unspoken stakes. Crush me and you'll miss the best show in the galaxy, Warlord. I'm just warming up, and I bet you love a good fight. Bet you're itching to see what a void rat can do. The air grew heavier, the crowd holding its breath, the orbs hum a faint drone against the tension that pulsed like a heartbeat. Clyra's tail stilled, her eyes narrowing, a predator assessing her prey, or perhaps something more, a spark of curiosity breaking through her iron resolve, a flicker of respect for the human who dared to meet her gaze. The guard growled, his claws scraping stone, but she raised a claw, silencing him with a gesture, her gaze never leaving Cassian, her amber eyes searching his for weakness and finding only fire. You amuse me, human, she said, her voice a low rumble, almost a purr, rich with challenge and a hint of something softer, something dangerous. For now, pray it lasts. She turned, her tail brushing the floor in a slow, deliberate arc, a dismissal that carried the weight of a storm, but her glance lingered, a flicker of something unnameable. Respect, curiosity, or a challenge accepted. A spark that promised more than words could hold. The narrator's voice booms, heavy with portent, a hymn to the moment. Thus began a clash of fire and cunning, a rogue's audacity pitted against a warlord's might, a spark that would set the stars ablaze, weaving a tale of defiance and desire across the cosmos. A story that would echo in the hearts of those who dared to dream. A legend born in the crucible of chaos and destined to burn eternal. Korrath culture was a forge of unrelenting strength and sacrifice. A crucible where only the unbreakable thrived, where weakness was a sin and survival a testament to will. On Korrath, a world of molten seas and storms that screamed with electric fury, life was a battle against the elements and each other. A relentless test of resolve where only the strongest endured. Volcanoes bled plasma, their crimson glow painting the sky like a wound, their heat a constant reminder of the world's unforgiving nature. Warriors honed their will in ritual duels that left scars as badges of honor, their blood steaming on obsidian altars, their roars a hymn to resilience that echoed through lava-lit halls. Emotions were weaknesses, flaws to be purged in the arena or buried beneath iron resolve. Their expression a betrayal of the strength that defined a Korrath, a stain on the honor of their clan. Clyra was their ideal, their living blade. A commander who'd faced a Valor warlord's psionic wrath at 19 and walked away unscathed. Her mind a fortress, her wit a symbol of unyielding power, her will a beacon that rallied her people through fire and blood. Her clan, the Ashen Blade, revered her as a living weapon, forged to carve their legacy into the galaxy's core, their songs telling of her deeds. How she shattered a Silthri warship at 20, its light snuffed by her whip's lash. How she crushed a rebellion on the ice moon of Korrath with nothing but her enforcers and her will. How she bore scars that told tales of invincibility. A faint mark across her brow from a duel with a Korrath rival who challenged her youth. A jagged slash along her jaw from a Silthri assassin who'd struck in shadows and paid with their light. A lattice of weaves across her back from a childhood trial in Korathar's molten pits, where she emerged unbroken, her scales blazing like fire, her roar a vow to never yield. Each scar was a silent saga, a testament to her dominance, a fire that refused to fade. She'd risen through the Ashen Blade's ranks with discipline, her training a crucible that burned away doubt, her victories a shield against a galaxy that sought to break her, her honor a blade that cut through fear and weakness. To the Korrath, Humans were insignificant, fragile vermin whose lives flickered out like sparks in a storm, their chaotic emotions a sign of madness, their fleeting lives a proof of their inferiority, unworthy of notice or respect. But Cassian Holt was no ordinary human. Raised in the asteroid slums of Terra's outer rim, where air was rationed and trust was a myth, he dodged predators before he could walk. His childhood a crucible of hunger, danger, and cunning. By 12, he'd rigged traps to fend off pirates, wiring explosives from scrap that sent raiders screaming into the void. His screams a hymn of defiance that echoed in the dark. By 16, he'd conned a silvery trader out of a cloaking drone with a fake hollow deed. Laughing as he vanished into the slums, the drone his ticket to bigger scores, his name whispered in awe and fear. His life was a saga of gambles, each heist, each brawl, each narrow escape a testament to a cunning mind, a labyrinth of schemes that turned enemies into unwitting pawns. He'd outwitted Valor brokers, their crystalline minds baffled by his audacity. Stolen from Korrath smugglers, their scales bristling with rage as he slipped away, and even hacked a silvery holomatrix to project a dancing human in their sacred halls. A stunt that earned him a bounty and a grin that lasted weeks. The galaxy's scorn only fueling his fire. His charm was a shield, his humor a spark, his defiance a fire that burned brighter with every scar, physical and otherwise, that life etched into him. A burn across his shoulder from a plasma bolt he dodged too late, a knife scar on his ribs from a brawl he'd won with wit, a faint mark under his eye from a childhood fight in the slums. Each a story of survival, of refusing to break. In Vrikal's neon-lit chaos, he saw what others missed. The twitch of Clara's tail when Valor brokers spun lies, a subtle flick that betrayed her impatience. The tension in her claws when Silthery preached peace, a tightening that spoke of distrust. The faint tremor in her voice when she spoke of her clan, a warlord carrying a burden heavier than her armor, a weight of duty that pressed on her soul. He saw the scar across her brow, not just as a mark of battle, but as a story she hid, a vulnerability she'd never admit, a crack in her iron facade. And he saw the exhaustion in her amber eyes, buried beneath her fire, a leader who'd never known rest, her soul a fortress under siege, her heart a flame that flickered in secret. Their paths crossed again in Vrikal's underbar, a dingy hole carved into the asteroid's gut, lit by flickering hollow signs advertising synthale and black market tech, their neon glow casting jagged shadows that danced like specters. The air reeked of ozone and regret, the hum of deals and threats a storm brewing in the distance, a constant reminder of the hub's restless pulse. Cassian, nursing a drink that tasted like burnt wiring, leaned against a rusted bar, his eyes scanning the crowd with a predator's ease, his grin a mask for the schemes that churned in his mind. Clara sat in a shadowed booth, bartering with a Valor smuggler, their voices low but sharp, like blades clashing in a duel, each word a test of will. The smuggler's prismatic shell glinted, rippling with unease as Clara's claws tapped the table, a rhythm that promised violence if the deal soured, her amber eyes burning with barely restrained fury. The Prism Shard's buyer was the Emberclaws, a rogue Korrath faction exiled for defying the Ashen Blade, their bitterness a poison that festered in Korathar's shadows, their ambition a fire that burned for revenge. Their plan: use the Shard's graviton lance to ignite a war that would shatter the Concord and carve a new empire from the ashes of the old. Their name a curse to be feared once more. Cassian's ears pricked, his grin sharpening. He smelled opportunity, a chance to score big, to outwit the galaxy's predators, and maybe something more. A spark he couldn't name but felt in his bones when he looked at Clara, her presence a fire that drew him like a moth. He slid into the booth, uninvited, his grin a flash of defiance that made the smuggler flinch and Clara's tail coil like a spring, her eyes snapping to him with a predator's focus. "Bad deal, Warlord," he said, leaning back as if he owned the place. His green eyes locked on Clara's, unflinching under her blazing stare, his voice steady but laced with mischief. "That shard's a trap, laced with a Valor neurovirus to fry its user's brain. You'd be handing your enemies a loaded gun, and they'd thank you for it before they pull the trigger." Clara's head snapped toward him, fangs gleaming in the dim light, her growl a quake that made the bar's patrons flinch, glasses rattling on tables, the smuggler shrinking into his shell like a startled creature, his light dimming in panic. "You dare interrupt me, Void Rat?" Her voice was a storm, her presence a wall of fire that could incinerate lesser souls, her claws twitching as if itching to strike, her tail lashing with a crack that echoed like a whip. "Call it a public service?" Cashin said, unfazed, his eyes never leaving hers. His grin a spark of defiance that danced in the dark, a challenge that refused to bow. "I've cracked Valor tech before. Nasty stuff likes to bite. Let me scan it, save you a headache, or worse. Unless you enjoy frying your brain for fun, which, no judgment, but seems like a bad day." Her tail flicked, a warning crack that echoed through the bar, sending a shiver through the air, the tension thick with the promise of violence. "Why should I trust a thief?" she snarled, leaning forward, her amber eyes peeling him apart like a plasma blade, searching for weakness and finding only fire, her scales glinting as she shifted, a predator poised to strike. "Because I'm the best thief you'll ever meet," he replied, his voice steady, eyes glinting with mischief and a challenge that made her tail still, his grin a blade that cut through her scorn. "And because you're too smart to die for pride. You know I'm right. Those Valor bastards don't play fair, and you're not dumb enough to fall for their glittering lies." She stared, her gaze a furnace, the bar's hum fading until it was just them, Rogue and Warlord, locked in a silent duel of wills, the air crackling with unspoken stakes. Her claws twitched, as if itching to strike, but her eyes held a spark, curiosity, perhaps, or respect for his nerve, a flicker that made Cashin's pulse quicken, a thrill that felt like standing on the edge of a star. The smuggler stammered, sensing the shift, and fled the booth, his shell dimming in panic, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Clara leaned back, her tail stilling, her voice a low growl, almost a purr, rich with challenge and a hint of something softer, something dangerous. "Prove it, human, or I'll carve your heart out and feed it to the void. Succeed, and I'll owe you that drink you seem so fond of." Cashin's grin widened, a gambler who just drawn an ace, his heart racing with the thrill of the game, and something deeper, a pull he couldn't name but felt in his bones, a spark that burned brighter in her presence. "Deal, Warlord, but I'm picking the bar, and you're buying the good stuff." The narrator's voice weaves in, warm with intrigue, a thread of starlight in the dark. In that smoky den, a rogue's audacity met a warlord's fire, kindling a bond neither could foresee. A flame that would burn through the galaxy's scorn and reshape their fates in starlight. A spark that would grow into a love that defied the stars themselves. The auction was a meticulously crafted trap, a Valor scheme wrapped in layers of crystalline deceit, each facet hiding a lie sharper than the last. A masterpiece of treachery designed to ensnare the unwary. Cashin's hunch was dead on. The prism shard was a decoy, its lattice woven with a neurovirus designed to enslave its user's mind to a hidden Valor master. A tool to control empires from the shadows, turning warlords into puppets and worlds into pawns in a game of cosmic greed. He'd seen Valor tracks before, data cores that fried circuits, hollow keys that scrambled minds, implants that whispered madness, and this one reeked of their signature treachery, a glittering promise laced with death. He worked through the night, hunched over a scavenged terminal in Vrykal's underbelly, his hollow key dancing through the shard's defenses, his fingers a blur as he unraveled its code, the screen flickering with Valor runes that burned his eyes like staring into a star. Sparks flew from the terminal, its circuits straining under the shard's psionic feedback, but he grinned, muttering curses and quips to keep himself sharp, his mind a blade cutting through the chaos. "Come on, you shiny bastard, give it up," he whispered, his grin widening as the shard's secret spilled, confirmation of the virus, and a hint of something bigger, a Valor cabal pulling strings across the Concord, their greed a poison that threatened to ignite a galaxy-wide war. He meant to warn Clara at dawn, slipping into her camp with proof, his grin ready to meet her scowl, but the Emberclaws struck first, their betrayal swift and brutal, a storm that tore through Vrykal like a blade through flesh. Their stealth drones, cloaked in stolen silvery tech, tore through the hub's defenses with surgical precision, their plasma bolts carving through obsidian like butter, their hum a death knell that shook the asteroid to its core. Tunnels collapsed, their walls buckling under blasts, sending showers of rock and dust into the air, the ground quaking like a dying beast. The hub became a battlefield, its neon lights flickering out, replaced by the crimson glow of fires and the blue-white flash of plasma. The air thick with smoke, ozone, and the screams of the wounded. Valor orbs shattered in cascades of crystal, their brokers' telepathic screams echoing in minds across the chamber. A piercing wail that made Cashin's head throb, his teeth gritting against the pain as he ducked behind a crate. Silphery flickered out, their light snuffed by EMP pulses that crackled like lightning, their formless bodies collapsing into sparks that faded into the dark. Korrath enforcers roared into combat, their scales glinting as they clashed with drones in a storm of claws, plasma, and fire. Their roars a symphony of rage that shook the cavern, their tails lashing like whips as they fought to protect their warlord. Clyra fought like a tempest, her plasma whip a blazing arc that cleaved drones in molten halves, each crack a thunderclap of defiance that echoed through the chaos, shaking the walls and rallying her enforcers. Her scales shimmered with sweat and blood, her amber eyes burning with unrelenting fury, a warlord in her element. Her movements a deadly dance of power and grace that left her foes in ruins. She roared orders, her voice cutting through the din like a blade, rallying her enforcers to hold the line, her whip carving a path through drones like a scythe through wheat, each strike a vow of her strength. Cashin, armed with a scavenged pulse rifle and his hacked Valor hollow key, danced through the chaos like a shadow, rerouting power grids to track drones in kill zones he'd rigged hours before, his mind racing 3 steps ahead, his grin a spark in the dark. He hacked hollow displays to project decoys of Clyra, drawing fire away from her, their flickering forms luring drones into traps where they shattered against walls or each other. He sabotaged drone navigation to send them crashing, their cloaking systems fried by a power surge he triggered from a scavenged terminal, his fingers flying across its cracked interface. His grin never faltered, even as plasma bolts singed his coat, one grazing his arm, leaving a scorch mark and a hiss of pain he ignored, his focus on the fight, and on her fire a beacon that kept him moving. In a collapsing tunnel, a drone's blast caught Clyra, searing her side and drawing violet blood that hissed against the obsidian floor like acid, steaming in the cold air, a mark of her mortality in a body forged for war. She roared, refusing to fall, her whip lashing out to shred the drone, its wreckage sparking as it fell, but her steps faltered, her vision blurring as pain gnawed at her strength, her scales dulling with dust and blood. Cashin was there in a heartbeat, dragging her behind a slab of fallen rock, ignoring her snarl of protest, his hands steady despite the chaos, his grin a defiance of death itself. "Hold still, you oversized dragon," he muttered, pulling a stolen medkit from his coat, his fingers deft as he sealed her wound with nanogel, dodging her flailing claws as she growled, pride wounded deeper than her flesh, her amber eyes blazing with fury and something softer, something unnameable. "Can't have you bleeding out before I get my cut, or that drink you owe me, Warlord." Clyra's eyes flashed, her voice a growl that trembled with pain and fury, her tail lashing weakly, a crack that echoed her fading strength. "You touch me without permission, Void Rat?" Her words were sharp, a warlord's pride refusing to bend, but her gaze softened, a flicker of something new breaking through her iron resolve, a warmth she couldn't name. "Permission's overrated," Cashin said, winking as he tightened the seal, his hands steady even as drones buzzed closer, their hum a growing threat, their lights casting shadows that danced like death. "Besides, someone's gotta keep you alive to hate me later. You're welcome, by the way." Her gaze locked on his, amber eyes widening with a flicker of something unnameable. Respect, gratitude, or something softer. A warmth that caught her off guard. A crack in the fortress of her soul. She saw his hands, steady despite the chaos, his grin defiant even as death loomed, his eyes holding hers with a courage that matched her own, a fire that burned brighter than her whip's lash. For the first time, she saw not a scheming void rat, but a man whose fire burned as bright as hers, wrapped in cunning and a spark of humor that warmed her iron heart. a spark that made her question the truths she'd forged her life upon. The narrator's tone softens, rich with warmth, a thread of starlight in the dark. Amid the rubble and ruin, Clara glimpsed a human whose defiance burned brighter than her own. A spark that planted a seed of doubt in her Korrath truths. A warmth she'd never known. A bond forged in the crucible of chaos that would reshape her soul. Together, they turned the tide. Their partnership of deadly alchemy of cunning and strength. Cashin's hacks crippled the drone's navigation, sending them spiraling into each other or crashing into walls. Their cloaking systems fried by his jury-rigged surges, his fingers dancing across terminals like a maestro of chaos. He rigged a terminal to overload, sending a pulse that fried half the drones in the chamber, their wreckage raining down like meteors, sparking and hissing in the dark. Clara's whip cleared a path through the chaos, her strength a beacon in the dark, her roars rallying her enforcers to push back the Emberclaw's ground forces. Their scales clashing in a storm of violence. They fought as one, rogue and warlord, human and Korrath, their movements a deadly dance of trust and instinct, a partnership forged in fire. Cashin ducked under her whip's arcs, firing precise shots to cover her flanks, his pulse rifle spitting plasma that dropped drones with surgical precision. Clara shielded him from blasts, her scales taking hits that would have killed him, her roars of vow to keep him safe. They reached the Emberclaw's leader, Vrothar, a traitor from Clara's clan, his plasma axe glowing with stolen power, his scales scarred from battles he'd fled, his amber eyes burning with bitter ambition, his growl a challenge to her rule. In a brutal duel, Clara's whip against Vrothar's axe, she brought him to his knees, her scales gleaming with sweat and blood, her breath ragged but unyielding, her whip humming inches from his throat, ready to end him. The crowd of surviving Korrath roared for blood, their voices a storm that shook the cavern, their claws raking the air, their eyes burning with hunger for vengeance. Vrothar sneered, defiant even in defeat, his voice a venomous hiss. "You're weak, Clara," he spat, his scales bristling, tainted by that human's lies. A disgrace to the ashen blade. Cashin, leaning against a shattered pillar, pulse rifle smoking, his arms stinging from the graze, spoke up, his voice cutting through the din like a blade, steady and sure. "Kill him, and you spark a blood feud that'll burn your clan to ash. Spare him, you control him and the Emberclaws. Smart play, Warlord. Show him who's boss and make him kneel." Clara hesitated, her whip trembling, her clan's dogma screaming for vengeance, the weight of their expectations a chain around her soul, a fire that demanded blood. Mercy was weakness, anathema to Korrath honor, a betrayal of the fire that defined her people, a sin that could shatter her legacy. But Cashin's logic, sharp and human, pierced her resolve, a blade of reason that cut through the haze of rage. She saw his grin, not mocking but steady, urging her to choose a path beyond blood, a path that could save her clan from endless war, a path that honored her strength in a new way. She lowered her whip, her voice a low growl that silenced the crowd, her amber eyes blazing with a new kind of strength, a fire tempered by choice. "Live, Vrothar, and serve. Betray me again, and no star will hide you from my wrath." The Emberclaws gasped, their roars of dissent drowned by Clara's glare, her presence a storm that brooked no challenge, her scales glinting like a beacon of authority. Vrothar bowed, his pride shattered, his loyalty hers. For now, his eyes flickering with grudging respect, his growl a reluctant vow. The narrator's voice swells, resonant with awe, a hymn to her defiance. In that moment, Clara defied her people's dogma, her choice shaped by a human's cunning. A choice that would ripple across the stars, a crack in the iron of her soul, a testament to a bond forged in fire and destined to burn eternal. Vrikal's ruins smoldered, its tunnels scarred but alive, the hub's pulse returning like a heartbeat, its neon lights flickering back to life. The prism shard was secured for the Concord, its secrets locked away to prevent war, its neurovirus neutralized by Cashin's deft hands, his hollow key a key to salvation. The surviving Valor brokers, their shells cracked, sang apologies in trembling harmonies, their pride humbled by the chaos they'd unwittingly fueled, their songs a vow to make amends. The Silthari, their light dimmed, pledged to investigate their stolen tech, their pulses slow with shame, their judgments softened by the truth. Clyra, her wound patched but her pride still raw, her scales dulled by dust and blood, found Cashin on a shattered platform overlooking the nebula veil, its violet and gold swirls painting the sky like a dream woven from stardust, a canvas of hope and defiance. His coat was singed, his face smudged with ash, but his grin was unshaken, a stolen Valor crystal twirling in his fingers like a toy, his green eyes catching the nebula's light like emerald stars, a spark of defiance that refused to fade. "You're no void rat," Clyra said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard, almost reverent, a low rumble that carried a warmth she didn't yet understand, her tail brushing the ground in a slow arc, a Korrath gesture of curiosity, of trust, a sign of a heart beginning to open. "You fight like a Korrath, but, stranger, your mind is a blade, your heart a fire. Why risk yourself for me, human?" Cashin shrugged, tossing the crystal and catching it midair, his grin softening but still sharp, his eyes searching hers for something he couldn't name, a pull that made his heart race. "Because it's fun, because you're worth it, and because screwing over traitors is my kind of party," he said, his voice light but laced with truth, his grin fading into something raw, unguarded. "Plus, you're not half bad to look at, Warlord. That whip's got nothing on you, and I'm not just talking about the firepower." She stepped closer, her scales catching the nebula's glow, her presence a quiet storm, her amber eyes softening with a flicker of wonder, a warmth she'd fought to deny. "On Korrath we honor might," she said, her voice low, almost a confession, her claws twitching as if unsure whether to strike or reach out, her tail stilling as she spoke. "But yours, it's in your cunning, your defiance. It unsettles me, human." He met her gaze, his grin fading into something raw, vulnerable, his heart laid bare in the starlight, his eyes holding hers with a courage that matched her own. "Good. I like unsettling you. It keeps things interesting, doesn't it?" The air crackled, their breaths mingling in the cold, the nebula's light weaving a halo around them. A moment fragile as a star's first light. Clyra's claw grazed his shoulder, tentative, as if testing the reality of him, her scales warm, smoother than he'd expected, like polished stone kissed by fire, a warmth that sent a shiver through him. Cashin didn't flinch, his eyes locked on hers, green meeting amber in a silent vow, a promise unspoken but felt in their bones. His hand brushed her arm, fearless, a rogue daring to touch a warlord, his fingers tracing the edge of her scar with a gentleness that made her breath catch, a touch that spoke of trust and defiance. The moment hung, suspended in time, until Clyra leaned closer, her breath warm against his face, her tail curling slightly, a Korrath gesture of trust, of something deeper, a sign that her heart was no longer iron. "You are trouble, Cashin Holt," she murmured, her voice a mix of warning and wonder, her eyes shimmering with a warmth she'd never allowed herself to feel, a fire that burned for him. "And you love it?" he whispered, his grin returning, softer now, a promise etched in starlight, his hand lingering on her arm, fearless and sure, his heart a flame that matched hers. The narrator's voice grows tender, almost a whisper, a thread of starlight in the dark. In that moment, Clyra's iron heart fractured, and a human's reckless courage slipped inside, claiming her soul with a warmth she'd never known. A love that defied the stars themselves, a bond that would burn brighter than any supernova, a fire destined to reshape the galaxy. Their bond was no easy path, a flame kindled in chaos and tested by a galaxy that scorned them, a love that burned against the weight of empires. Korrath elders branded Clyra a traitor for loving a lesser being, their voices like thunder in Korrathar's obsidian halls, their claws raking the air as they demanded her exile, their eyes burning with betrayal, their roars a condemnation of her choice. Her clan whispered of weakness, their gazes lingering on her scars as if they'd lost their meaning, her honor tainted by a human's touch, her leadership questioned by those who'd once knelt before her, their loyalty fraying like a worn thread. Human traitors mocked Cashin, calling him a fool for betting a scaled tyrant, their jeers echoing through Vikal's markets and Terra's fringe worlds. their laughter a blade that cut deeper than he'd admit, though his grin never faltered. Whispers dogged their steps, on trading hubs in Concord outposts, on neutral moons where diplomats sneered and turned away, their words a poison that sought to dim their fire. The Valor sang of the Warlord's pet, their harmonies dripping with disdain, their crystalline minds weaving tales of her fall, their songs a mockery that echoed across stars. The Silthery pulsed with disapproval, their light dimming in judgment, their voices whispering of imbalance, of a Korrath tainted by human chaos, a warlord who'd strayed from the path of light. Yet Cassian and Clara defied them all, their love a rebellion against a universe that demanded they kneel, their defiance a fire that burned brighter with every scornful word, their bond a shield against the galaxy's wrath. Their trials deepened when a Valor cabal framed Clara for sabotaging a Concord peace summit on the neutral moon of Arinder, a diplomatic outpost carved into obsidian cliffs that wept liquid starlight, their glow a stark contrast to the treachery brewing within. The cabal planted evidence, forged hollow fees of Clara's whip striking a Silthery envoy, her voice calling for war, her scales glinting with blood that never was, her image twisted into a monster's mask. The feeds spread like wildfire, broadcast across every hollow feed in the galaxy, painting her as a warmonger bent on reigniting the fringe wars, a traitor to the Concord's fragile peace that had cost countless lives to forge. The Concord demanded her execution, their decree a death knell that shook even her clan's loyalty, the Ashen Blade's elders wavering under the weight of galactic pressure, their roars quieting as doubt crept in. Clara faced her fate with a warlord's pride, her whip at her side, her scales gleaming under Arinder's violet sky, her amber eyes unyielding but haunted, a flicker of doubt in their depths, a fear she'd never admit, a crack in her iron resolve that broke Cassian's heart. He refused to let her fall, his grin hiding a fire that burned for her, a vow to fight for her as fiercely as she fought for her clan, a promise that no galaxy could break. Cassian infiltrated the Valor's crystalline archives on their homeworld, Valthes, a labyrinth of psionic traps and telepathic sentinels that could shred minds with a thought, a fortress of light and lies that guarded the Cabal's secrets, its walls pulsing with energy that hummed like a living thing. Armed with his hollow key, a stolen Valor Psi-shield that hummed with unstable energy and sheer nerve, he dodged mind-shedding barriers that pulsed like living nightmares, their telepathic whispers clawing at his thoughts, promising despair and madness, their voices a chorus of doubt that sought to break him. He hacked hollow projections to project decoys of himself, slipping through crystalline halls like a ghost, his steps silent but his heart pounding, his grin a defiance of fear. His heist was a masterpiece, rigging traps to slow crystalline guards, sabotaging psionic nets to blind sentinels, uncovering data that exposed the Cabal's treachery. A plot to destabilize the Concord for profit, using Clara as a scapegoat to ignite war and corner the market on gravitic tech. Their greed a poison that threatened worlds. But the cost was high. A Valor sentinel grazed his mind with a psionic pulse, a lance of pain that left him staggered, blood trickling from his nose, his vision swimming with fractured light, his body screaming to stop, his mind reeling with memories of the slums, of fights he'd barely survived, of a life that had forged him for this moment. He clutched the data, his grin defiant even as he stumbled, his heart pushing him forward. For her, for the truth, for the chance to see her amber eyes again, to see them burn with pride instead of doubt. Clara, defying her clan's orders, fought her way to Valthes to save him, her whip a blazing arc through Valor drones, her roars echoing through crystal halls like a storm, her scales gleaming with sweat and blood, her wound from Vrykal still aching but ignored, her strength driven by a fire she hadn't named until now, love, raw and fierce, for the human who'd risked everything for her. She carved through defenses, her whip a symphony of destruction, each lash a vow to protect him, her roars a challenge to the galaxy itself. She found him collapsing in a chamber of shimmering lattice, the data clutched in his hand, his face pale but his grin intact, his green eyes flickering with defiance, a spark that refused to fade. "You fool," she growled, lifting him with ease, her voice cracking with something raw, fear, love, rage, her claws gentle despite her fury, her tail curling around him in a protective gesture, a sign of a heart no longer bound by iron. "Why risk your life for me?" "Because you're my fight," he rasped, his grin weak but unyielding. His eyes locked on hers, green meeting amber in a vow that needed no words, a promise that burned brighter than any star. "Couldn't let you take all the glory, could I?" Her eyes shimmered, a tear, a Korrath tear, rare as a dying star, trailing down her scales, catching the crystal's light like a prism, a sign of a heart breaking open. She cradled him, her claws gentle, her tail curling tighter, her voice a whisper, raw and trembling. "You are my weakness, human, and my strength." The narrator's voice trembles with emotion, a hymn to their bond. In that crystal tomb, Clyra's worldview shattered, her love for this human a truth stronger than any Korrath dogma, a fire that burned away her doubts and forged a new path, a bond that would defy the stars and reshape the galaxy. The climax erupted on Korrathar, where Clyra faced trial for her weakness, in the Ashen Blades Coliseum, a vast arena carved from lava-blackened stone, its walls etched with the scars of 1,000 duels, its air heavy with the heat of molten rivers below. The clan's judgment roared like a storm under the crimson sky, thousands of Korrath filling the stands, their scales glinting like molten iron in the volcanic glow, their roars demanding blood or exile, their claws raking the air, their amber eyes burning with betrayal, their loyalty fraying under the weight of tradition. Clyra stood in the arena, her whip coiled, her scars bared, her armor gleaming but her heart heavy, the weight of her clan's expectations a chain she'd carried too long, a fire that threatened to consume her. The elders accused her of betraying Korrath honor, of sullying their legacy with a human's touch, their voices like thunder that shook the stone, their claws pointing like blades, their words a condemnation of her choice. "You are no warlord," they thundered, their eyes burning with scorn, "but a shadow, weakened by a Voidrat's lies, a disgrace to the Ashen Blade." Cashin, still battered from Veilthes, his arm bandaged and his head pounding from the psionic graze, crashed the proceedings like a meteor, his grin a blade that cut through the tension, his presence a defiance of their judgment. Hacking the Coliseum's hollow displays with his hollow key, he broadcast the Veiler's treachery across Korrathar, the data blazing in crystalline clarity, proof of Clyra's innocence, of the Cabal's plot, of her strength in defying a galaxy's lies, the feeds showing Veiler brokers scheming, their voices confessing to framing her for profit. The crowd fell silent, their roars choked by truth, their eyes widening as the hollow feeds revealed the Cabal's greed, their lies exposed like wounds. Cashin strode into the arena, his coat tattered, his green eyes blazing, his voice echoing over the Coliseum's roar, human defiance ringing like a bell across the lava-lit expanse, a challenge that shook the elders' dogma. "You call her weak?" he shouted, his words a blade that cut through the storm, steady and sure, his grin a spark that refused to fade. "She's stronger than all of you because she dares to feel, to fight for what's right, not just what's Korrath. She saved your asses from war and I helped deal with it. She's your fire, your blade, and you're too blind to see it." Clyra stepped to his side, her scales gleaming under the crimson sky, her whip crackling with plasma, her presence a storm that brooked no challenge, her amber eyes blazing with pride, not fury, a fire tempered by love. Her claws grazed his shoulder, a gesture that silenced whispers, a vow that needed no words. "This human," she roared, her voice a hymn of defiance that shook the Coliseum, echoing through the stands, "has taught me strength is not just in flesh, but in soul. He risked his life for me, for truth, for peace. Judge me, and you judge him, and the future we've won." The elders fell silent, their dogma shaken, their claws stilling as the crowd's roars shifted. Not anger, but awe, a hymn to their warlord and the human who'd stood by her. Vrothar, now loyal, stepped forward, his voice a reluctant rumble that carried weight, his scars glinting in the volcanic light, his eyes flickering with respect. "The human speaks truth. Clyra is our blade, forged anew, stronger than ever." The clan erupted, their roars a hymn to their warlord, a testament to a bond that had bested the galaxy's titans. Their loyalty renewed like a fire rekindled. The Concord cleared Clyra's name, and the Valor Cabal was dismantled, their brokers fleeing in disgrace, their schemes exposed to the stars, their songs silenced by the truth. In the aftermath, Cassian and Clyra faced new challenges. Their love a beacon in a galaxy that still whispered of their defiance, a fire that burned brighter with every trial. The Concord offered them roles as envoys, a chance to forge peace across worlds, to weave a new tapestry of unity from the ashes of war. But their bond remained their truest fight, a flame that needed no title to burn. On Korrath, Clyra introduced Cassian to her clan, her claws entwined with his hand, a gesture that silenced whispers and forced respect, her amber eyes daring any to challenge her choice, her tail curling around him in quiet moments, a vow of trust. In the Ashen Blade's halls, she taught him Korrath dueling forms, laughing as he stumbled, her whip snapping just close enough to keep him sharp, her roars softening into chuckles that warmed the stone. On Terra, Cassian showed her the slums where he'd grown, the rusted habs and flickering stars above a reminder of their shared defiance, their shared scars. They wandered markets, shared synthale under neon skies, and bickered over tactics, over risks, over who owed who a drink. But their bond grew, a fire tempered by trust, by moments of quiet where her tail curled around him and his hand brushed her scales, fearless and sure, a touch that spoke of love without words. Their journey took them to neutral moons, to Concord outposts, to worlds where their love was a curiosity or a scandal, a defiance that drew stares and whispers but never broke them. On one such moon, they stood in a garden of bioluminescent flora, the air humming with alien songs, the petals glowing like stars under twin moons, their light a soft hymn to the night. Clyra, her armor shed for a rare moment, wore a Korrath tunic of woven star metal, its threads catching the light, her scales glinting like a nebula, her presence softer but no less powerful. Cassian, his coat patched anew, leaned against a glowing tree, his grin softer than ever, his green eyes reflecting the moons, a spark of love in their depths. "You know," he said, his voice low, almost reverent, a tone reserved for her alone, "I never planned on falling for a warlord. Kinda throws a wrench in my whole lone rogue thing, you know?" Clyra's laugh was a deep rumble, a sound that warmed the night, her tail brushing the ground in a slow arc, a gesture of trust and affection. "And I never planned to love a human," she said, her amber eyes softening, shimmering with a warmth she'd fought to deny, a fire that burned for him alone. "You've broken every rule I knew, Cassian Holt, every truth I held." "Good," he said, stepping closer, his hand finding hers, fearless, his fingers entwining with her claws, a touch that defied the galaxy's scorn. "Rules are overrated, Warlord. Always have been." Their lips met, a rogue and a warlord, their kiss a quiet rebellion against a galaxy that had tried to tear them apart, a vow sealed in starlight. The flora pulsed brighter, as if the stars themselves approved, their light weaving a halo around them, a testament to a love that burned beyond the reach of empires. They stood there, wrapped in each other, the galaxy's whispers fading into silence, their bond a fire that needed no words, a flame that would burn eternal. In the final scene, they stood on a Terran colony's cliff, Earth's stars blazing above like a vow, their light a promise of futures yet unwritten, a canvas for their defiance. The wind tugged at Cassian's coat, his grin softer now, almost serene, his green eyes reflecting the sky like jade kissed by starlight, a spark of love that burned steady. Clyra's claw rested on his shoulder, warm against his skin, her tail curling gently around his leg, a Korrath gesture of trust, of love, a bond sealed in fire and blood, a vow that no galaxy could break. Her scales caught the starlight, gold veins glowing like rivers of fire, her amber eyes shimmering with a warmth that had once been unthinkable, a fire that burned for him alone. "You've broken me," she murmured, her voice a low hymn, rich with wonder, her breath warm against his cheek, her words a confession of a heart laid bare. "I thought honor was all, strength my only truth. But you are my fire, My defiance, my soul. Cashin's hand brushed her scales, fearless. His fingers tracing the scar across her brow with a gentleness that made her breath catch. His eyes locked on hers, green meeting amber in a vow that needed no words. "And you're mine," he said, his grin a promise etched in starlight. His voice raw with a love he'd never expected. A fire that burned brighter than any heist. "Guess we're both trouble now, Warlord." She laughed, a sound that echoed across the cliff. A Korrath warlord softened by a human's charm, her tail tightening around him in a quiet vow, her scales glinting like a beacon of their bond. Their kiss was a rebellion, a rogue and a warlord united against a galaxy that had tried to tear them apart. Their love a fire that burned brighter than any star, a flame that would not be dimmed. The nebula veil shimmered above, its violet and gold swirls weaving their fates into the cosmos. A testament to a bond that had defied empires, a love that had reshaped the stars. The narrator's voice soars, triumphant and warm, a hymn to their defiance. In a universe of giants, a human's cunning and a Korrath's heart forged a love that burned brighter than any supernova, proving humanity's defiance. Messy, reckless, and unbreakable is the galaxy's mightiest force, a fire that will shine forever in the dark, a story that will echo through the stars for eons to come, a legend of love and defiance that will never fade.